Kyle, Brian Chung here. So you talked about the Hong Kong dollar. I'm wondering if we could also focus on the Chinese yuan, given all the news that we've seen today. Some might argue that this isn't necessarily manipulation so much as it is actually China allowing the market pressures to sink further on the yuan by loosening their bands, and that the market pressures were really what took it to 7 today. Where do you feel that the proper bottom is, given the pressures? And obviously there's concerns that were in China well before even the tariff wars that, the economy was slowing down at large. So where do you see the USD Chinese yuan really at its natural level?
Yeah, I think you mentioned natural, right? They have an absolute closed currency system. When you look at their economy, supposedly represents 15% or more of global GDP, and currency settlement in the Chinese yuan has gone the other way, and it represents less than 1% of global currency settlement. So we all take the Chinese for their word, and the funny thing about their manipulation, or whether or not they manipulate, they prop up their currency. They're trying to hold this whole ball of wax together, this whole charade that their currency is a real global currency. And when they finally have to let go and stop selling dollars to buy yuan to maintain an artificial level, you see what happens to it. So they've done that a little bit today, and it's moving, roughly 2%. But if the yuan were to free float tomorrow, it would depreciate 30, 40% against the dollar. I mean, how many wealthy Chinese businessmen do you know that can't wait to invest more money in their own currency and send their kids to colleges in Beijing? I mean, every rich Chinese person in the world they can't do anything else but figure out how to get their dollars into Vancouver or US or London. They're trying to run with their money because they realize what the system really looks like.
Hey, Kyle, this is Carlton English here. I'm just wondering, we see China possibly with the currency manipulation, the threats to no longer buy U.S. agricultural products. What measures, aside from tariffs, can the U.S. take to counteract some of the recent actions or threatened actions from China?
I mean, I think what everyone must realize is, number one, when you see news, when you see the news, it's important to realize that the Chinese news agencies are just propaganda agencies, right? The Global Times, the China Daily News, Xinhua, they're all mouthpieces of the Chinese government, and they've been able to craft a narrative globally that somehow China has the upper hand. What I just mentioned to you is they don't have any dollars. They have a very low level of dollars. They built a pile of dollars up, hollowing out our industrial base, and they've been bleeding those dollars because they run a huge fiscal deficit. Their combined fiscal deficit is 10% of GDP. Their current account is now going to move into a deficit from now on indefinitely. And again, that's more technical and we can get into that. But basically, the flow of money is going to be out, not in dollar terms. And so when you say, what can the U.S. do? I mean, all four of the Chinese banks, the big four, whether you look at policy banks or SOE banks, they all are under, today they're under consent decrees with the U.S. Department of Justice for money laundering, and they all process payments to sanctioned entities in Iran and Russia and all these places. All the U.S. has to do is enforce its laws and sanction the big Chinese banks and take them off the SWIFT system, and that cripples China, i.e., they have to have dollars to operate, and they don't have any dollars, and we hold all the cards.